Good morning vlog. It is Friday, March 29th. I'm ready to go, but to work. I'm running a little bit behind, but I wanted to provide a morning update. And to be quite honest, I'm a little bit frustrated at this time. Not exactly the best way to start off the morning, but actually no, I do have a couple of wins. Since it's Friday, I did my weekly morning routine of getting my body measurements and my vitals checked, specifically my body weight and my blood pressure, and I'm down only about almost 2 pounds from last week, which is a little bit less than my average weekly of 3 pounds. So, but that's okay. Hey, any progress is good progress in that regard, and I'm happy for that. Still have about 11 or 12 pounds to go before I am below 200 pounds. So, but whenever I started this whole diet keto thing, I was at over like 240 pounds. So like I said, any progress is good progress. And I'm happy to report that for the first time that I've started to check my blood pressure on a weekly basis and monitoring it and tracking it on the health app on iOS, I have reached a normal blood pressure level, or at least a good blood pressure level. There are like indicator lights on the blood pressure machine that I use, where when it does 3 sets of blood pressure readings, and then it averages those 3 sets, which gives a little bit more accurate of a blood pressure reading, because you're taking your blood pressure 3 separate times, so you're not subject to just either one bad reading whenever, say, you're like stressed or like nervous about the blood pressure readings, like I usually am whenever I get my blood pressure taken. I'm like, oh, it's like I'm taking a test or something, because actually I am, but I mean, like it's like an anxiety from taking a written test. But anyway, it has the device that I use has little indicator lights on it that glow either like green or orange. I haven't seen them glow any other color other than orange. I hope they don't go any other color other than orange, because if it goes red, then that means blood pressure is really bad. But if you have blood pressure that is above or below the normal parameters, I guess, then it will change from green to orange or amber, I guess. And for ever since I've started using this machine, at least one of those 2 indicator lights has always been amber. And for the first time since I've been taking these readings and measuring them, both indicator lights have lit up green, which means that I'm within normal blood pressure range right now. And that is just really exciting for me personally. I've been trying to get my blood pressure under for a long time now. And one of the discussions that I've had with my doctor whenever I go in for my check-ins and my physicals is that in order to help, one way to help get that blood pressure down is to get the weight down. So I've been working on the weight. That's why I started the whole keto thing, and it looks like I'm hopefully finally seeing some results. So I need to see if I'm staying on this good trend for right now, and just wait until next week when I take my readings again to see if my blood pressure is still within that optimal range, see if this is a good trend to stay on. But anyway, on to my frustration. So I finished editing, or did the heavy lifting of editing for the next episode of the Messiah Upper Room podcast, and it was a good discussion revolving around the person, a certain person that I don't remember, called Naboth, and how the king in that land wanted to take Naboth's land, who originally had a vineyard, and wanted to use it for a vegetable garden. And I mean, it's hard for me to approach this subject right now because I'm bad at setting up stories. But anyway, this was a this was an instance where our normal pastor was out of town, and usually I stay in the Bible class discussions until about 10:30 or so, but because I need to go do like a sound pre-check for the late service that starts at 11, and our Bible class hour takes place in between the two services. And our normal pastor was out, so we had a guest speaker, and he's a member of the class, and he's doing a great job. And I had to leave early because we had our rehearsal pushed to 10 o'clock, which we normally do earlier in the week. So I had to leave class way earlier. I could only go in there, get the equipment set up, make sure it was like off to a start, and then book it and go to the sanctuary for rehearsal. So I wasn't really able to stay there and be a part of the discussion, which I really like the discussions, like on the subject matter and whatnot, because I feel like it gives me insight into what other people think about the certain scripture reading that we're going over in the class that day. And it also gives me an opportunity to present an alternate view, because if you're not aware, the average age in that class, despite there being 100 people, is pretty high. It's probably at least in the I want to say in the 60s at a minimum, and that's even when I attend. So when I leave the classroom, that average goes way higher, because I'm one of like 3 individuals out of 100 that is below the age of 32. And so that attends on a regular basis, I should say, or tries to. And so we were talking about Naboth and how his land was seized by basically the government. And so the discussion eventually turned to the subject of eminent domain, and how we as Christians can help our fellow brothers and sisters, for that matter, protect them from their land getting taken by the government. And I'm leaving this section of the podcast in there. There's like a really long pause, and then one person throws out, "Vote Republican," and then the entire class, like kind of busts out into laughter, poking fun just a little bit. And the discussion continued on about eminent domain and how we can apply it to modern life, and the subject of the oil pipelines, and there's a bullet train. I don't know if you're familiar with local Texas politics, but there are a couple of cases where there's talk about an oil pipeline and a bullet train going between Dallas and Houston, and potentially the government using eminent domain to seize that land from farmers and other property holders along those lines, those routes, in order to make these railways and pipelines. But something that I saw that was omitted from the discussion, or wasn't even brought up by anyone, to my knowledge, I don't think it even passed anyone's mind. Nobody was talking about the eminent domain cases that either are taking place or would be taking place along the southern Texas border and other states' borders with Mexico. And what about those farmers? And what about those people that own land along those border states? And it's just incredibly frustrating that I was not able to be there to provide that discussion. I didn't know this type of subject matter would be discussed that day, and it's just a frustration on my part, because I like, it's hard for me to even put it really into words. And later in the class, another person speaks out talking about, well, we are a democracy. We control. We vote for our elected officials. So the best thing that we can do is put Christian politicians into office, and that I understand the spirit of it, but that statement made me roll my eyes personally, because if you're of the mindset that you can only vote Republican in order to put a Christian politician into office, that's where we're at a point of disagreement if you were to talk to me about it. And I hope you do. I love to have these types of discussions, because me looking at that statement and the statement that the conversation and feel of that room while as I was editing the podcast, I can't necessarily see how you can, with a straight face, say that we need to vote Christian politicians into office without also saying, well, if the Republican Party is supposed to be that, then why is the head of our Republican Party a serial adulterer that has gone on the record saying that he has never asked forgiveness from God? And like that, if you just step back for just a moment and look at that and let that sink in, it becomes very apparent that there's really no surprise why younger generations are becoming more and more atheistic, because those that younger generations are looking to from guidance, their actions, those people's actions aren't mapping what they're saying. And why would anyone want to be a part of that? Like, you're saying, oh, we have these morals, we have these values, we vote for people that express these values, when very clearly through their actions they do not. And if you're not able to even come to the table and acknowledge that, then we're going to have a very difficult time understanding one another, because that isn't what I expressed. That isn't even opinion. That's observation and fact. And if we can't find a common ground with that, then we're never going to be able to have a productive conversation or even productive action to attain the ultimate goal of having a more Christian society. So that's just everything that was going through my mind as I was editing this podcast, and the frustration that I had, because I really wanted to be a part of this discussion, but I couldn't be because of other obligations that I had to attend to. And I think in case that ever comes up again, then I either may need to find somebody to fill in for me in at that sound rehearsal, because usually we have our rehearsals on Wednesdays. And but once every once in a while, it gets pushed. It has to get pushed to Sunday. That's something internal with the church that I think we need to address and fix, because that doesn't work for me. But hey, you know what? We have a few other people on sound. I don't necessarily have to be there. I mostly mix. I mostly fine-tune the mix anyway during the service live. So really the rehearsal is just more of a warm-up for the praise team than it is for mixing. As long as we can get the general mix there, I can fine-tune it. And it doesn't take that long to fine-tune it. But I'm just taking the information that my pastor wants to reach a younger audience, but there's no discussion from a younger audience, and I'm trying to fill that void by being a part of by potentially being a part of that younger audience, to provide that discussion and provide that voice, so others can at least hear it, and it's not all just one-sided vocal points from a select few within the class. And it's just really frustrating, and it's depressing, because I really want to help Pastor succeed in his goal in reaching a younger audience, but unfortunately we're not really getting too much outside discussion. And I mean, like, that's just a part of not growing the podcast at the rate that I would like for it to grow. I'm investigating different measures to help get to help get this podcast out there. But at the same time, I can see that on first blush, anyone that would listen to this upcoming episode as their first episode that they've ever listened to, they would immediately turn off the podcast probably and say, well, there's nobody else talking in that. Or maybe it'll spark like a fire that somebody would love to discuss, and bring that point up that I just brought with the cases for eminent domain and whatnot. And I plan on writing to Pastor whenever I submit this for review, bringing up those discussion points and concerns. But yeah, that's just something that I really needed to get off my chest this morning, and I did take a moment back, because I got really riled up. I got really infuriated. I used a few expletives and things like that I probably shouldn't have, but I just need a moment to collect my thoughts, and I really wanted to express that through my vlog, because I don't want this vlog to just be highlight reels and crap like that. I want this to be real, genuine content, and what's really happening in my mind, and how I'm feeling at this moment, and getting my thoughts out, because I can't necessarily express it as well through other means, if that makes sense. And I'm hoping by doing this that I inspire others who may come across this content sometime in the future, whether it's a few days from now, whether it's a month from now, whether it's 10 years from now, that hey, this is what was happening with Phil. This is what he was going through. This is where his mind was, where his heart was, and what he felt like saying. And I don't know if everything I've said is 100% correct, but I know that at least it's it's true to my heart, that to get this discussion out there, and to try and spur it on in some constructive way. And I would love to have this type of conversation with you. I would love to make it in any way possible. So if you want to talk about it, feel free to message me on Snapchat, comment on the YouTube video when I upload this to YouTube, shoot me a DM on Twitter, or a reply on Twitter, or even message me on Facebook. Do any of those means. Email me, phil@philcasper.net. I mean, whatever. I love to have this type of conversation. And so I can understand where you're coming from. You can understand where I'm coming from. This is my opinion. This is my view. This is my feeling, my opinion. And if you want to continue on in a constructive conversation and how we can potentially reach a solution, I'm open to it. But anyway, now that I have all that on video, I am needing to get to work. So I hope you have a great morning. I hope it's not as heavy and frustration filled and venting as mine, but I hope you have a fantastic day today. All right, vlog, it's way late in the day now. So late in the day that it is now night, and actually it's 10 o'clock. So powered through work, came back home and just got back to work on stuff. Had just a little makeshift dinner with the wife, and I finished mastering the latest episode of the podcast of the Messiah Upper Room podcast to get that sent off to Pastor for review. Sending a little bit of feedback with that episode as well. Like I expressed my concerns earlier this morning, so like that is basically what I'll be sending over his way. Did some apartment shopping as well to get that underway. We're probably going to be moving apartments to somewhere else in the coming months, but not quite sure where. And an update on the Built-in Obsolescence podcast. I'm trying to get it approved through iTunes, but I didn't get any sort of confirmation or any update from my appeal with the rejection of the podcast. So I just am going ahead and deleting it for right now, and I'm going to try and resubmit it later. Hopefully it'll allow me to do that. But it can take up to like 24 hours for it to delete it from its cache. So now I have to wait on that before I even upload it again. So that's just a lesson to make sure you have everything correct before you try to submit it for approval. I think, if I remember correctly, iTunes actually does have like a pre-check tool that you can use before you officially submit it for approval. But anyway, with that lesson learned, I'm probably going to be going to sleep pretty soon, but then waking up in the morning to probably, I think if depending on the weather outside, I may actually go outside and enjoy the weather just a little bit while editing the next episode of the Built-in Obsolescence podcast, just to get that up and going, and then finally clean up some of the stuff here. All this crap that I need to get listed and sold and out of this apartment, because we're going to be downsizing to a smaller apartment in the future, and none of this stuff is going to fit. And with that, until tomorrow, I bid you a good night, and I hope you had a great Friday, and I hope you have a great weekend this week.